上次我们做了苹果产品发表会的简报分析，今天让我们来看看它的竞争对手 Microsoft 是否在最新的 Windows 11发表影片上有不一样的成绩。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管双语沟通力的 Podcast。我们希望带给大家最实用的沟通工具，包括了成功人士对全球市场的分享、职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。Hi, I'm Sherry, founder of Executive Plus. As a language trainer and certified coach, I've trained hundreds of managers from Fortune 500 companies such as Dior, Google, Deloitte, and Yahoo.
And I'm Nick, Director of Communication Strategy at Presentality. I've helped startups raise millions of US dollars in funding and train the executives of publicly listed companies to present on the global stage.
Welcome to the Executive Plus podcast,
where you can take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. A few episodes ago, we broke down the Apple WWDC 2021 event and talked about that Apple has lost a bit of their presentation abilities, especially those made famous by Steve Jobs. Well, this past week, Microsoft just had a reveal event for Windows 11, and the contrast between the Windows event and the Apple event is pretty big.
那在第81集的时候，我们分析了苹果产品发表会的那支影片。那也 to our surprise， 那支影片让我们感到蛮失望的，因为像之前 Steve Jobs 他的这种做简报的 magic 好像不见了。那不知道大家还记不记得上次我们有讲到说苹果的简报啊，它并没有任何的 focus， 它也没有 framing， 它也没有一个非常有效的 demo。 那在这一集呢，我们要来聊一聊就是 Microsoft 它对 Windows 11的产品发表会这个部分呢，他们的成绩是怎么样的？ To our surprise, it's really good.It's
quite well done. So, for those of you who need a refresher on episode 81, where we talk about Apple, there were two main complaints I had on the way that Apple is currently running their keynote events. The first main complaint was a pretty basic presentation skill, which is to frame out what you're doing. The last few Apple events that I've watched, they're really not framing anything. They're just putting together 50 commercials full of features for their brand new products, and there's not a clear narrative as to why all these things belong together or why these things are important. The second big issue that I've had about recent Apple keynotes was that they're spending a lot of time just telling us what's amazing. But they're not demoing things, they're not really showing, or they're not giving us demonstrations that make you just go, wow, I want that thing.
Definitely. 那其实在这一次的 Windows 我必须要老实说了，当我看到这些影片的时候，我并不是那么的 excited because I'm not a technology nerd. I just feel like I have to watch these for my job. 但是当我开始看 Windows 的时候，第1分钟吧，我就觉得 wow, I feel touched. 我开始有点感动，因为一刚开始就是他的 CPO, right? Chief Product Officer, 他就开始了做这个非常清楚的 framing。 那如果大家有机会的话，我觉得大家一定要来看一下这影片，那我们也会附在我们的 description box 里面。那他在做这个 framing 的时候，你就很清楚的知道呢，他要让他的产品连接到家的这个感觉，所以这个家 home，It's like the essential part of the entire narrative.
This is getting back to that idea of framing, but what Microsoft did really well here is they found the thing that would connect with their audience from step one. They addressed the concerns of what people are feeling. They've been stuck working from home.They've been feeling apart from families. They've been getting a lot of anxiety from the pandemic situation. And the way that they frame out this idea of home really starts to touch on those things. And as an audience, whether you're a developer or just a general audience looking at what Windows is doing next, they really strongly came out from the beginning framing out the idea of home and connecting it to everything their audience has been feeling for the past year and a half.
Absolutely. I think the word home, being emotional, being wanting to connect with family or friends, kind of throughout the entire presentation. 那这个 CPO 它在中间的时候，它也一直当做这个串场的角色，而且我觉得很特别的是，他在最后面的时候，他的最后一句 closing statement 的时候，他又提到了 It feels a lot like home. So again, 他的这个 framing 非常的完整，从一刚开始到最后面 it's very complete and it just feels like a very complete story to me.
And it's not perfect, but you can tell they tried really hard that all the update features, whether it's the design of the interface or whether it's some brand new feature that they've plugged in there that's supposed to make your work life easier, they continually tie it back to this idea of home or this feeling that they want to give you. So even when he's talking about simple design updates, he was like, the way that we designed our interface was to make you feel calm. In a time of anxiety, we wanted to give you a place to go back, like a home, to feel comfortable. So again, it's not throughout the whole thing they nailed every point, but they did really put an effort to constantly tie back to the theme, constantly tie back to the key idea they want in.
所以除了这个有前后呼应的这个技巧之外呢，它有另外一点我觉得蛮 surprising， 也就是这位 CPO 其实很多主管级的人士或者 even CEO 或那么 high level 的 executives 并不是所有人的那种 presentation skill 都非常好，也不是所有人都很厉害能站在台上然后就是滔滔不绝啊，讲的都没有错字啊，不会停顿。其实他有这位 CPO he definitely kind of stumbled upon a few words, but it really shows that he was authentic and he's trying to convey that emotions to the audience.
And I think this also shows the power of having a consistent, strong narrative that people can get part of. You're 100% right. I would argue that the Apple presenters, stage present, stage-wise, are way better than the Microsoft. Not just the CPO, but if you look at most of the people presenting, they're not looking at the screen. You can tell they're reading off of a prompter. They're a little bit awkward. They pause a lot, but not in a very natural way. They don't seem as comfortable on the stage. Whereas when you look at the Apple, every person they chose to present at Apple seemed very confident and comfortable on the stage. But because the narrative was so strong, because everything was tied together, I felt way more interested in watching Microsoft all the way through and kind of ignoring the stage presence, quote-unquote problems, which they're not really a problem. They do quite well.
And actually, I would say this. Apple's presenter reminds me of actor and actresses, but Microsoft presenter reminds me of people that are actually developing product.
Yeah, it actually almost feels like the Apple people were those, if you watch the Oscars, the Academy Awards, any kind of award show, that person who comes up and the nominees are, that's the sort of stage presence they're giving. But with Microsoft, it's nice. They're talking about community. They're talking about being home. And so you don't feel that anyone who's talking is far away from you. This is a person you could connect with, that you could work with.
And actually, sometimes I don't even think the CPO is looking into the camera.
Oh, no. A lot of the times they aren't.
他好像在看旁边的东西。
Yeah.
So, Nick, what is the second thing that Microsoft did really well?
The second thing that Microsoft did really well was also the second problem for Apple. In the Apple events, you feel like they're just telling you what's great all the time. And there's kind of a lack of quality demos. There's a lack of wow moments. Microsoft did a lot better job of showing. Of course, it's staged. But when they show you what they're talking about, there was a few moments, actually, from the very beginning. I think they had something where they could automatically pre-lay out your screen. The moment I saw that, I was like, wow, that's cool. And it made me want to plug in my old Windows desktop computer just to download Windows 11.
Yeah.
That's how powerful that was for me. And when I was talking to Andrew about this, he had a discussion because he had a similar thought process where one thing that we saw in Apple was tell, no narrative, questionable demos. But when you look back at really good product reveal presentations, there's actually a flow that's not just show and tell. It's actually frame, show me the thing that's going to make me go wow, and then tell me how it works. And this was very much the Microsoft style. They framed out the narrative from the very beginning. Then they showed me a demo of a really cool feature that, for me personally, made me, wow, I want to get my desktop back out. And then they told me why it was so important. And that was the order that kind of grabbed you in a product demo.
所以这次从这个 Windows 11的一个 presentation 我们就可以看到说其实真的一个非常好的 presentation 这个 framing 的重要性其实是超过于你会不会在台上 your stage presence to be honest 那我觉得其实他做这个 framing 我觉得是大家可以学得到就算你不是做产品发表会好了就是做任何一个 presentation我觉得这个 framing 还有他也用了这种前面跟后面呼应的这种方式嘛 talking about home and connecting back to home 然后你中间做的这个 narrative 你一直去加强你这个主题我觉得这个是我们平常在做 presentation 在公司做 presentation 的时候就可以用到的
Yeah, anytime that you're doing especially some kind of product demo and if you look at TechCrunch every year they have a pitch competition but you'll find that the winners usually go in that order. They frame out a problem, then they have a really amazing demo that makes you go, wow, that's really cool. And then they tell you how it works or why it's so useful for their users. So that became true in Microsoft's presentation for a mass audience or for a startup presentation. Anytime that you can give a demo or an example of how what you're talking about works that can give someone a strong feeling, if you framed it right, that demo should come next. And then after that demo, tell me what I just witnessed.
Can I ask you a question? So when it comes to demo, now we usually see demos from like a physical product, right? Well, what happens when your product is a service? Kind of like what we do. If we're providing a service, how do we actually conduct the demo?
I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do that, and that's a much longer podcast discussion. But anytime that you can give someone a sense of the speed of that service, I think actually one time you told me a story of one of the best presentations you saw in college where they timed out a delivery service to show up after they finished their presentation talking about why that delivery service was so powerful.
Okay.Actually, that reminds me. Okay, 所以这是我大学大概2年级、3年级，我还记得是在 accounting class， 但是我们要做一个 presentation. I don't really remember exactly what the presentation has to be about, but 这一组的他们就选了一个 fast food chain. 那他想要表达的是说，这个 fast food 它的 process 非常的好，从你订餐到做完到 delivery， 它只会花了大概30到40分钟。So how they show this?他们在做这 presentation 之前，他就当着大家面前，这个他在做 intro 的时候，拿起电话订了一份餐点，然后就说 Alright, let's see how fast they can get here. 所以他在他的 presentation 做完之后，非常有意思的，这个人就到，这个 delivery guy 马上就到了我们教室的门口 knock on the door, and they got the meal that they asked for. So it's like, to this day, 已经那么多年了，我还记得这个 presentation.Right.
So anytime that you can find a quick way to demonstrate or really help it sink in, planning that out ahead of time will often be more powerful than any explanation you can give.
Yeah, because I actually don't really remember what they said, but I remembered that part where they ordered the food and it came. And I remembered exactly what they're trying to convey, but I don't remember their words, but I remember the message.
And that's just a powerful demonstration right there.Well, if you get a chance, go back, watch the Microsoft event. Don't watch the whole Apple event, it's 2 hours. But even within the first 5 minutes of either, you can definitely see a huge contrast in how they plan it out and how they execute it. This is not a commentary on the product itself, whether we're Windows people or Apple people, but it's more along the lines of what makes a powerful product presentation campaign. If anyone's really interested in a lot more information, Andrew and I do a much more in-depth deep dive talking about the presentation details, all in English, in our other podcast, The Anatomy of Eloquence. If you're interested in getting a lot more details, you can check that out as well.
Alright, 希望大家喜欢今天的 episode. 那如果你希望我们也继续做像这样子简报分析的话, we're happy to do that. Just let us know through our Facebook or our email. So we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye. 如果你喜欢我们的 podcast, 欢迎来追踪我们的主管英文 Executive Plus 的 Facebook. 那也可以写信到我们的信箱yourcareerplus@gmail.com